Greetings, and thank you for your interest in the U.S. Transhumanist Party. The U.S. Transhumanist Party seeks to put science, health, and technology at the forefront of American politics. My name is Gennady Stolyarov II, and I have been the chairman of the U.S. Transhumanist Party for now a bit over 8 years. The party itself is just a bit over 10 years old. We celebrated our 10th anniversary on October 7th, 2024. The Transhumanist Party was founded in 2014 by Zoltan Istvan, who was our first presidential candidate. And since then, we have run presidential candidates during every election cycle. In 2020, our presidential candidate was Charlie Cam, and our vice presidential candidate was Liz Parrish. In 2024, our presidential candidate was Tom Ross, and our vice presidential candidate was Daniel Tweed. I encourage you to learn about each of these candidates as they have quite fascinating histories and an extensive record of achievements. So what does the Transhumanist Party stand for? We have three core ideals that we embrace. They are fundamental to what the Transhumanist Party espouses. The first core ideal is that the Transhumanist Party supports significant life extension achieved through the progress of science and technology. The second core ideal is that the Transhumanist Party supports a cultural, societal, and political atmosphere informed and animated by reason, science, and secular values. And the third core ideal is that the Transhumanist Party supports efforts to use science, technology, and rational discourse to reduce and eliminate various existential risks to the human species. So we are very much a party that is oriented toward human flourishing, human well-being. We seek to transcend the polarization that has unfortunately afflicted our society, this split of the population into left-wing partisans and right-wing partisans, and this quite intentional, in our view, effort by the political elites to divide and rule, essentially getting half the population to intensely hate the other half so that people do not recognize their common goals, their common objectives as human beings, and do not recognize the ways in which the political elites, the duopoly in this country, thwart the vast majority of people from achieving those goals. And if we think about what actually can unite people, everybody wants a better life. Everybody wants a life lived in good health. Everybody wants prosperity. Everybody wants to live in peace. And those goals are not inherently in conflict between a person of one set of views and a person of a different set of views. But what can enable everybody to achieve those goals? The progress of science and technology can create abundance, and indeed it has created significantly greater abundance for people alive today than was the case for our hunter-gatherer ancestors, or for people in the ancient world, or for people in the Middle Ages. And this creation of abundance can continue. The great fallacy, which divides people and pits people in conflict against one another, is this fallacy of zero-sum thinking, that there's only so much to go around, that resources are finite, that they're a fixed pie, and if one person or one group or one class or one ethnicity gains something, then somebody else has to lose. And the great insight based on humankind's history of technological progress, based on precursor traditions of thought, including the philosophies of the Renaissance, the idea of humanism that originated during that time, as well as the philosophies of the Age of Enlightenment, would hold that no, the pie is not fixed. We can grow the pie through advancing science and technology. We can increase our lifespans. We can increase our quality of life. We can all have access to more knowledge, to more culture, to more opportunities for bettering ourselves than our ancestors, even the wealthiest and most powerful among them, could have imagined. So, what does that mean in terms of policies? The Transhumanist Party seeks to advance the progress of science and technology as rapidly as possible, which means we want to remove barriers that currently stand in the way for scientific research. There are numerous roadblocks right now at the federal level, as well as at the level of lesser institutions. One great example of this is the US Food and Drug Administration, which on average takes 10 to 15 years to review a new drug or medical device, and it could cost several billions of dollars. So that greatly limits the kind of innovation that could happen, and only well-connected pharmaceutical companies with large armies of lobbyists could get something through the FDA. So we clearly think that needs to be reformed and barriers need to be lowered. But we also see the need for a cultural transformation. We do seek to achieve radical life extension within our lifetimes. Many of our members are immortalists. We do not wish to die at all. So what kinds of transformations would it take to reach that kind of outcome? Those are the policies that the Transhumanist Party supports. But it's not just in the realm of medical science that we support this kind of progress. We support progress in artificial intelligence, in nanotechnology, in automation, in techniques of vertical farming and 3D printing of buildings. And we support political reforms, electoral reforms, to take power away from the duopoly and allow genuine political competition to transpire. For instance, ranked choice voting or ranked preference voting, where people, instead of just voting for one option, can rank order any number of options on the ballot that they prefer. That allows third parties or minor political parties to get a lot more serious consideration, and that takes away the lesser evil trap, because if you still favor one of the major party candidates over another, you could put that candidate ahead of the other in your rank ordering. Also, we obviously support lowering of ballot access thresholds. Right now, it's extremely onerous for a political party to petition for ballot access because in many states, one literally has to get thousands of signatures by hand, apportioned by the various congressional districts, which is nearly impossible to fulfill unless one has millions of dollars to essentially burn, because that money does not advance any constructive purpose. It is in response to entirely artificial barriers to entry put in place by the Democratic and Republican parties. And of course, we seek a culture of greater inclusivity for additional points of view. We want minor parties represented on the debate stage. We want minor parties covered in the media. It's important to note that legislation is not the only way to achieve change. Changing the culture, changing the terms of the discourse are just as important, if not more so. There's this concept of the Overton window, which is the spectrum of ideas which are considered acceptable in public discourse. And what we seek to do is to shift the Overton window so that accelerating technological progress and pursuing radical, healthy life extension for as many people as possible become seen as mainstream goals, just as fighting cancer is a mainstream goal, even though it wasn't that way in the early 20th century. A lot of activism, a lot of change had to take place between the early 20th century, when most people just accepted cancer as some sort of even divine justice, to the point in 1971 when Richard Nixon could officially declare war on cancer. So we want eventually the federal government to declare war on aging, and every government on earth to declare war on aging. Now, in terms of foreign policy, we advocate a policy of peace and non-interventionism to the extent possible, because we seek to redirect resources away from destruction, away from this military industrial complex, toward what our founder, Zoltan Istvan, termed a scientific industrial complex. So instead of building bombs, instead of building autonomous weapons that kill people, we want that technology to be devoted toward peaceful production. That could mean peaceful nuclear power, for instance, safe nuclear power as well, because the up and coming generations of nuclear power plants, ones that, for instance, would use the thorium fuel cycle, are meltdown proof in essence. Furthermore, we do not want the US federal government to squander resources that could be used to advance the well-being of people in the United States, but also people in other countries, because we are a party that supports peaceful international cooperation and international trade and exchange of scientific information and technological innovations. We are quite different from the Republican and Democratic parties as well, in that we do not seek to polarize the population by focusing on wedge issues. There are certain issues that are given undue emphasis, and they could be important in some cases, but they don't really affect the vast majority of the population in terms of their day-to-day experiences. And two prominent examples of those wedge issues are abortion and gun control. So we don't take strong positions on each of those issues. We leave it up to our members to decide where they stand. But ultimately, we hold that the only real way to resolve the conflicts inherent to those issues is through further technological progress. For instance, artificial wombs that could render any conflict of rights inherent in the abortion issue today obsolete, or personal protective technologies that could help people survive any sorts of mass shootings or acts of mass violence. But we recognize in today's climate of polarization and with today's still limited technological advancement, those issues cannot be resolved constructively to the satisfaction of everybody. So we need to push forward technological progress so that those issues could be resolved. And furthermore, we are a pro-immigration party, which is quite unlike what the Republicans and the Democrats currently espouse. We have a document called the Transhumanist Bill of Rights, version 3.0, which attempts to formulate the broadest framework of rights possible, applicable not only to human beings, but sentient entities that in the future may come to have human levels of intelligence or even greater. So in terms of our respect for human rights, for the rights of individuals today, individuals who are seeking a better life, that respect is quite strong and thoroughgoing. And we are opposed to any attempts to infringe upon individual rights solely because of somebody's national origin, solely because of the way by which somebody came to this country. As long as people are being peaceful and productive and respectful of the rights of others, we want their rights to be respected. Those are just some of the highlights of what the U.S. Transhumanist Party stands for and our policy priorities, but we have an extensive platform of 117 sections that I invite you to read on our website at transhumanist-party.org. We also have periodic votes of the membership on provisions of our platform, and we are going to have another such vote soon. You can join for free at transhumanist-party.org/membership. One distinguishing criterion of Transhumanist Party membership is that we do not limit it by age. and we do not limit it based on national origin. Obviously, you can't vote in US elections if you're not a US citizen, but you can be what is called an allied member of the Transhumanist Party, and you can participate in our deliberations if you have the ability to form a political opinion. So we also, by the way, think that the voting age threshold should be lowered, and children and teenagers who are capable of espousing political opinions should be allowed to vote. So perhaps for students, that would be an attraction of the Transhumanist Party. But overall, we are looking forward to a future that is significantly different from the present. And I think what distinguishes us from other political parties is that we are not bound by the 4-year election cycle. We are not short-termist in our orientation. We would rather get the long-term future of humanity right than win an election next time around. But do keep an eye out for the Transhumanist Party in 2028, because I think the candidates we will be running then are going to be quite interesting and quite novel. That is all I will say about that, but thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that you all live long and prosper.